Welcome back to Cheddar Business. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's estimated $2 trillion valuation of Saudi Aramco may actually be closer to $1.2 trillion. That's according to several banks. That said, just last year, the oil giant posted a net income, a profit larger than that of Apple, ExxonMobil, and Alphabet combined. Joining us now is TG Watkins, Director of Stocks at investment strategy firm Simpler Trading. TG, it's so great to have you on the show. Why do you see the spread in valuation from $2 billion to 1.2, or $2 trillion, excuse me, to 1.2 trillion?
Yeah, you don't want to get those numbers mixed up.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. Partly, I think, because of the mystery resounding around some of their books. I mean, they've never been public, and they are over in Saudi Arabia. So we just don't really know what's involved when it comes to their profits and where they're getting their money. Part of the big discrepancy comes in, it's so cheap for them to get the oil out of the ground, and then they can sell it for a bigger profit. I mean, it costs almost about $3, and they can sell for about $62, $65. So there's a lot of mystery around it.
TG, how are trading desks? It appears you're on a trading desk. How are trading desks preparing for this IPO?
Well, as with any IPO, it's always kind of sometimes it can be a little bit of a letdown. What they try and advertise out there doesn't always show up as to what they get. But for this one, there might be a big difference, and what we need to be looking at is kind of the global oil supply and manufacture. We can look at that through, say, ETFs like USO. We know that UNG, the natural gas, has been going up, and so it seems as though it might be warming up to a warm market for this kind of IPO.
The human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia, the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, how much of that do you think will be a part of the conversation when investors think about whether they want their money in this company?
That is exactly right. It is a big question. And I think what it needs to come down to is what your personal interest and what your beliefs are. You know, for example, some people are not willing to invest in tobacco companies because of how they feel about that and where they want to put their money. It could be the same kind of deal when it comes to the Saudi oil company and the fact that it's backing their company, their human relations and all that. And so you need to make sure that you know where your money is being invested and if you're okay with it and what you want to do about that.
There are incentives that might be part of this package, TG, but even with these incentives to investors, right, it doesn't seem as if Saudi Aramco is going to get that $2 trillion valuation that it's aiming for. Explain the incentives that we know of to try to lure potential investors.
Well, as far as the incentives for some of the citizens and locals, from what I've read, it looks like for every 10 or so shares that they buy, they might get an extra one for the first 180 days to kind of get people in there and really kind of boost it and make sure that this moves up in the charts. It's kind of like trying to get people to do some pre-sales and give a little discount and a little nudge to the people who are citizens.
Has that been a strategy?
Either way,
has that been a strategy that's worked in the past, or one that you think can be successful?
I think it could be successful. I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, anytime we talk about this with America too. I mean, America first. Why not Saudi Arabia first? They want to make sure that they get their people on board to support them and their country and their company. I don't see why not.
TG, there's this tension here between Aramco's IPO, the idea that it's raising money in order to move away from an economy that is dependent on oil. How do you do that, but at the same time, on a roadshow, tell investors that, hey, even though we're trying to move away from a fossil fuel economy, even though we recognize the decline of fossil fuels in the long-term future, this is still a good place to put your money?
Well, I would basically look at that as we are very, very far away from actually getting fully off of fossil fuels and onto alternative sources. I mean, we think about just some of the other stuff that people don't think. I mean, we do have cars like Tesla and all that, but think about shipping containers. Think about power generation. We have a lot of stuff that we haven't converted over, and we just don't have the technology yet to be able to supply and support that kind of infrastructure. And then also when it comes to developing countries, unfortunately, there is still going to be a very, very large need for these fossil fuels going forward that, you know, for the foreseeable future, as long as they can produce it, there's going to be a buyer for it.
TG, explain if Americans are able to take advantage of this first domestic offering before it does do an additional international offering on Aramco's part.
I think that Americans get into it just fine. I think it's going to be on the stock market, just like any other IPO. And if you want to invest in it, you can invest in it individually, or you can talk to your broker, or you can talk to your retirement account people that manage this and say, yeah, I'd like to get on that, and tell me what it's going to be like. And they'll give you the information that is pertinent for you to make sure this is a right decision for you.
TG Watkins, Director of Stocks at the investment strategy firm Simpler Trading. Thanks for joining us on Chatter this morning.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.